I'd like to acknowledge that we're holding this board meeting on the unceded territory of the Tsimshian Smelly speaking people. I'm so very honored to live, work, and play and have my family be surrounded by amazing culture and language.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Adoption of the agenda. Trustee Dalton, seconder. Trustee Deal, thank you. Trustee Horn.
Please, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a change to talk about AGM issues that came up at the recent AGM. Somewhere.
Yes, how is old business?
Sure.
Thank you.
And then number two, I don't see, there's a bylaw page 20, but I don't see the bylaw. Is it somewhere missing out of the agenda that we're meant to read or?
Brittany just gave it to. Oh, it
Oh,
will
it's
be
a handout?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So agenda as amended. Wonderful. Thank you. All in favor? As tonight, we do have a full agenda, and as the board has decided, we won't have presenters on budget days. We have no presenter this evening. So then the minutes of the open board meeting held on April 15th. Wishes of the board, Trustee Dalton. Seconder. Trustee Sanchez. All in favor? Thank you. Necessity of closed meeting and agenda, Trustee Horn.
41349.
You, seconder. Trustee Beal, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Correspondence addressed to the board. 5.1. Wishes of the board, Trustee Horn.
Receive and file.
Trustee Meyer, would you try to speak to that?
No, thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. And 5.1.2. Wishes of the Trustee Horn.
I'd like to make a motion to reply with a letter thanking PRDTU for reaching out to the board. Thank you. And saying that the board accepts an offer to connect with PRDTU.
Seconder. Trustee Beal. Please, Trustee Horn.
I think it's important that we recognize that PRDTU has reached out to us in an effort to work together and, like it says, strengthening efforts by doing this together. And so I think it's very important that the board responds in kind and we work together. So thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. If I could also share, the president of the union and I have been meeting and we meet with, Superintendent Samuel as well. And my understanding is the connection with HR is like, you're well connected there as well. Yeah, thank you so much. So thank you, Trustee Horn. Copy to the board, none. Superintendent of Schools report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your package, 21.1 is field trips on page 13.
Trustee Horn.
So rugby team to Port Ed, would we know why Port Ed? Was it someone came to town and they went, or were they just practicing on a different field? Do we know what happened there?
I don't. Trustee.
That's okay. I'll leave that alone. I didn't ask you to research this before asking. So.
Looking at my staff, you guys know?
And also,
Mike's on. It's okay. Thank you.
oh, and then another question is, for the golf, zones and matches in Houston and Terrace, and then to Pemberton for conventions. I've heard great things about the school golf program. And it's fantastic to see the opportunities available to our students to do this kind of stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Horn, I would share, I know that the Port Ed is moving towards getting a cricket field. So perhaps maybe that's why they went.
I might have to go visit them.
I'm sure you will. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, 6.1.2 for enrollment, I turn to Sandra, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Superintendent Samuel, and I direct everybody's attention to the table on page 14 and the graph on page 15. Where we show what our enrollment was looking like at the end of April. So 1,806 students. Indigenous student count at 62%. And we're holding our own. If you look at previous years on the graph, you can see that this year has been pretty stable for enrollment, which is interesting. Any questions?
Thank you. Upcoming projects, learning and other, a number of things before I get into public interest disclosure and the report. Lots going on as always in our schools. April 29th, students, staff, along with representative rights holders and stakeholders gathered at PRMS. And I will massacre this, but Roberta is here somewhere. You could probably help me with the Kamagutka Lax. Yep. PRMS Blessing of the Land.
Go to left you.
Samoyed Gidhan, Alex Campbell led a blessing ceremony for the site. Once the site was blessed, photos were taken of rights holders and stakeholders breaking the ground with golden shovels. Marlene Clifton led the student drummers and songs. Many thanks to the Indigenous Education Department for organizing this event and making it such a great success. Cassidy Nelson and Emery Russell Hooker were successful in their audition for the Music Fest Soho Sound Canadian Junior Honor Band. And I believe there is a video on social media about that. The CHSS under 15 girls volleyball team won gold at the indoor provincials in Abbotsford. Students and staff around the district honored the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and Two-Spirited People. Commonly known as Red Dress Day on May 5th. CHSS students walked the track in memory and recognition, and the Gitwas drum group led by the young matriarchs drummed throughout school. Very powerful. Student learning surveys have continued. They closed on May 9th, and the results will be available at a later date. And this is as you know, we participate in those. Family fun nights, and for example, there's a welcome to PRMS night, and many of the elementaries have been doing their family nights to help families see that school is a positive place, and to come in and enjoy and talk to everyone and just allay a lot of the fears that our schools have in the past given people. Track and field practices and meets have been going on at all schools and will continue. The new PRMS. Wow. Lots going on there. Lots of phone calls to the superintendent about it. The sewer work is continuing, and they're continuing with pilings for the foundation for the school. The argument is whether they should be round or square. I couldn't add to that discussion. Consultation includes our preferences for technology such as the brand name of the door locks.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's like, I'm fine with Schlage, or Kevin knows the difference between them, so it's a good thing he was on that call. Schlage or
Keep it
Ford.
simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Mechanical, yeah.
Yeah. So that continues. Early learning and childcare, of course, this is Susan Cobbs is doing a lot of work on this. Elementary schools are planning play in the kindergarten sessions for the month of June to welcome in new students before they start school in September. Conrad and Pinehurst schools have had a particularly good turnout so far with this initiative. Welcome to kindergarten at most elementary schools will take place during the first week of September. And somewhat related is the ECE dual credit courses have been successful with 18 students from CHSS
Nice.
and PCS completing the 2 courses, and they certainly will by June. Students will be eligible to apply for an ECEA, Early Childhood Educator Assistant Certificate. This program is a part of the recruitment strategy for the new childcare facility opening in October of 2027. Next is the public interest disclosure annual report. There's a number of things to report. Number one, the number of disclosures received has been 0. The number of disclosures acted on or not acted on is 0 for both. So we're required to, as you know, in the past, we have reported. That is the crux of the matter. There have been. And Roberta, anything for the group?
Annual report? Before we move to that, sorry, trustee Horn, you had a question?
Oh, shout out to the girls volleyball team for getting gold medal.
Yes.
Great.
Awesome.
The PRMS ceremonies, we had fabulous turnout, involvement from all parts of our community, and I thought that was fantastic. That they came and did that, and we had great toughness from the Indigenous parts of our community. Also, that the 18 students in the ECE program, that's fantastic news. And I'm really impressed with how much effort went into organizing and getting that to happen. And that we get such a good outcome from it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roberta.
So this is the annual report that's data from last year, but it's based on findings also programming services and what the students are learning and experiencing this year. Super here. Shares these. I know I didn't bring through. So we have just a mini PowerPoint. Amahupo, Roberta Zertadawayu, Mashkadu Waku, Haindewa Togu Kisbuwadi Dedu. Here's our annual report, and our cover students are from Conrad School. So the next slide is just the acknowledgement for the territory. And Mike, sorry, we couldn't get the annual report downloaded and then sent. It's too big of a file and it just didn't connect, so. There'll
He's
be a,
giving a thumbs up.
okay. And the next. So let's get curious. Let's get curious. Okay, as we delve into the district data and district supports and Indigenous education program services, how can we identify both opportunities for growth and areas of success? So take a few minutes to look through the annual report and just get curious about what's going on in there, what kind of learning with the data. Get curious about data. We always need to be curious about data. And then we will have some discussions and questions. If you have any edits, write it in there at your market and I'll collect them back. So I have to collect them back and then we'll.
You always steal them from
I know,
us.
so we'll do the final edits and then we'll have the professional copy once they're approved for tonight and are at our IEC meeting on Thursday, then we can head to the press, the printers.
I didn't know Teresa has the name.
Oh, I know. We wanted to acknowledge and honor her in the annual report. Like, it's a lot, yes.
You did a lot.
I like that you increased It seems to me that you've increased these curricular units as well as the actual programs that the
Mhm.
students get to operate. So it's great that you're building on what you've already done and slowly, as you bring them in, slowly increasing.
Just
that.
going deeper, more meaningful, purposeful, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're all growing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So Kinchen, if you go to the next slide. Actually, the next, we'll come back to that one and the next one. Okay, so just looking at one snapshot of data, grade 4 literacy by the FSAs. There was a decrease in literacy from 43% to 47%. And also grade 7. So we just have to look at that and get curious about it, ask questions, look at our framework, look at our plans. Are we measuring the right thing? Are we using the right screening? Are we collecting the right data? All those things play into a big role for this.
I'm noticing a bit of recovery from COVID now, starting to notice a difference, even kids I talk to in the district. So
For sure.
that's really, it's a telling tale when you see that, what an impact that, that kind of pandemic had on well, on all of us, but especially our young people, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I see more confidence in kids now too. Want to see good confidence, want to see good programs, want to keep kids off the streets and get them in the right direction.
And you want to go to the grad one, grad data? I think it's, yeah, here we go. You know, the data kind of shows us areas of growth that we need to look at, focus on, do some more equity work, but it also shows great success and opportunities, especially with 10.3% increase in the past 5 years for our grad rates for our Indigenous students. And that's pretty significant.
Yes, it is.
We want to keep that momentum going, but we also want to look at the contributing factors in the past 5 years, or even from kindergarten with that cohort of students, and keep that growth going. So, and it's important that we do look at the contributing factors, our wraparound supports, our programs and services, our equity work, all of those things, language, culture.
It's great to see these numbers climbing in the right way, right? So, yeah.
What comes to mind, Herbert, is that I think of every time of graduation is that, right, our kids just aren't graduating from grade 12, they're graduating our whole district, like kindergarten teacher, grade 3 teacher, grade 7 teacher, everybody has, you know, the pieces of that puzzle that is less uniform human. And so how do we, you know, how are we supporting that everybody is a graduate of the district, right? Not just of grade 12.
For sure.
Also, curiosity on page 4, 65% of Indigenous learners participated compared from 71%. So it's a curiosity as well.
Even with the completion rate, I've marked off like the 6-year and the 5-year, and say that they're climbing now, and that started out of probably time when we were at the pandemic, right? And so that's where I see a real turnaround that's coming up now. Thank heavens that we're seeing the end of. I love the fact they got to take their drums home. Isn't that?
And the fact that they made it themselves.
I know, but like that.
Beautiful.
We need to do more of that, so everybody gets a drum.
I'd like to that you've reported on Bill 40 and that we need to work more together with the district and your groups to advance education in the right way. So I think that's great that you've included that in here, and we'll do our best to work on that.
Yeah, for sure. It really amplifies Indigenous education councils in the province.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. So that's great news.
And the next slide. So these are highlights that we just wanted to highlight in the annual report. There's a lot of things that are in there. But two programs we wanted to highlight. And these two programs are led by Carla Rourke at Charles Hayes, and it extends over to Pacific Coast Schools. So one is the Reaching Home Grant, and that is the Indigenous Coach Mentor, and that's Billy Nelson, and he leads the, part of that role is leading the student drum group at Charles Hayes. And they've been making great exposure and growth, and they're mentoring younger students to take over that group. It's been amazing and so uplifting. And then the other role we wanted to highlight is also from the Reaching Home Grant led by Carla at Charles Hayes. And that's Christina Layton, the Indigenous Food Sovereignty, which is amazing. Really teaching and learning about local food, Tsimshian foods, how to harvest, process, and share. That's the biggest thing, is connecting and sharing. And sending home food with families.
She's come and done a presentation for us and so much richness. in all that she's doing.
Didn't Cam just do, and get that, didn't he do a seal? Didn't the kids over there do a seal?
Yeah.
Like every piece of the seal was used.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Some of the kids from PCS, they go to, Friendship House, and they are doing a whole lot of work. Because I go there Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Mhm.
and I see them, and they are so wonderful, and they're doing really interested in doing the work, because someone like myself, very hard to handle the beating, because it's, and it's the way they do it, but they're enjoying every minute of it
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
go there. It's just wonderful.
It's great to connect to other outside programs in the community, so, and kids are signing up for them.
I'm just wondering when are you having an open day, like coming in and invite the community to come and visit.
To Wapsigia?
Yeah. I
Oh,
think
sure,
that's a
yeah,
great
we'll have an
idea.
open house for sure, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much that you people do, and and I don't think a lot of people don't appreciate it, they can't appreciate it if they don't see it.
Mhm.
So probably having an open house would be great. There's so much that you people do, and really commend you for it. You're doing a good job. Yeah.
Our team, yeah, it's great, and it's the district that supports that, and it's doing the learning and the leading in schools. It's been wonderful. So the last slide is just typo. Can't see it on the Stoics at Newsom, so it's thank you to all. You can kind of see the Newsom there, and this is a picture at PCS where Lori Berger is leading the young women's group there. And cooking and healing and reconciliation is a big part of that theme.
Thank you very much for putting this together.
Yeah.
And I like in your page 58, your list of things you're still moving ahead with.
Mhm.
reading.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a long list.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Any other questions or comments for Roberta?
Once again, lots of pictures, so you've been listening,
Mhm.
saying that we need lots of pictures, but you've done that really
We
well.
just haven't done a tally yet to see if it's equitable within the schools. I know schools are paying attention to that. So I do have to collect them, but not right now.
It's great.
Later on, yeah. Thank you.
Lots of
Thank
work.
Thank you, Roberta. Thanks, Roberta.
And that is the superintendent's report.
Thank you for all that enlightening information.
Lovely.
This, I always keep my.
Any questions for Superintendent Samuel? Thank you. Secretary Treasurer's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under topic 7.1, April 2025, the statement of operations report was included on page 16. Total revenues of April were $23,657,000. This amount was pretty much in line with amended budget. However, other revenues show a decrease of $60,000 when compared to budget. This seems to be a timing issue that will be solved in May. Total expenses of April were $23.4 million, which were almost $35,000 lower than amended budget. The most important variances in salaries come from teachers, principals, vice principals, and education assistants. The main reason of such variances was the correction of an incorrect allocation of a teacher position. This was identified as part of the review my team is doing to our financial reports. Also, one position was allocated to a special purpose fund following the guidelines of the Ministry of Education. At the end of April, the school district has a surplus of $256,000 compared to the $215,000 expected, which is $40,000 in the positive. As an additional note, something I am working with my team is to ensure all revenues and expenses are recognized at the end of every month to have the most accurate picture of the school district. In accounting work, it is called accrual basis. So this is an ongoing activity that will help us in our financial analysis going forward. So in other words, and I have had some conversations with the director of finance, is again, sometimes we don't receive the invoices at the end of the month. However, we know that we have incurred some expenses. So what we are trying to do is at the end of the month, for those expenses that we have not received invoices, and we know that, utilities, normally there is a delay. Okay, so we need to recognize the expense when the expense is incurred. So again, the main objective is when we're looking at the financial statements, we're looking at the most accurate financial picture. So I will open the floor in case the trustees have any questions about the April financial statement.
Trustee Horn?
Thank you, Enrique. When you spoke initially about other revenue, saying that that was a timing issue, does the timing issue affect the other items where we gained in that same category? And so, or will we end up with a better off?
I think we're going to increase in our revenue next month. Based on the conversations we've had or the review that we did to the April financial statements, I think we are going to have actually an increase in my expenses. That is what my expectation.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Okay. Thank you. So topic 7.2, annual facility grant. On page 18, the annual facility grant, what we know it as AFG, proposed spending is shown. As a reminder, the purpose of this grant is to provide the school districts with additional financial resources for specific maintenance projects. There are 9 main categories eligible for AFG. And it's upgrades for electrical, exterior wall system, HVAC, interior construction, accessibility, plumbing, roofing, and site upgrades. Also includes asbestos abatement expenses. The total AFG, the total AFG for the period would be $938,319, which is in process to be approved by the Ministry of Infrastructure. That normally happens I believe, in July. On page 19, there is a detailed report of the projects which our acting director of operations, Kevin, will be working on in the next months. I will open the floor to trustees in case there is any question.
Trustee Horn?
Capital asset management system withholding, obviously to purchase at some point.
Basically, how it works is, and correct me if I'm wrong, briefly, is we use a system that is provided, a software that is provided by the ministry. So every single school district has to pay with them for the use of that software. So the cost for us is the amount that you mentioned, is
Okay.
around $11,000.
Okay, thank you.
Just that it's an annual charge that they charge us.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and that's consistent for as long as I've been here at least.
Yeah, okay.
Just a question, I'm not quite sure, I missed this the last time. Kevin, how come we're putting an HVAC or boiler from Roosevelt into the Westby School? Is it because of the corrosion that's happening there?
Just, it's something I put aside, I've taken out from Roosevelt. We had, 5 boilers in there, 3 working, 2 for parts, just in case, just to keep Westview alive.
Yeah, okay.
I've got another plan, so
Oh, okay, I thought that's what you were doing.
if we carry through with it, we've got an alternative heating source.
Okay.
That old boiler in there is,
Add it,
it's end of life soon. So.
thank you.
Trustee Horn?
My question is perhaps for Andrew, perhaps for Kevin as well. Cameras at Conrad, we've had cameras in
Yes,
elementary schools already.
yes.
We have. And that's the exact question, so.
Any further questions?
I just have one last one. Is there a reason we're gonna finish the middle school floors? Is it because we're so far out from our new school
Yeah,
that it needs to be done?
I'm not gonna do it next year. It's just what happens is the floors, they dry out, they have gaps in them. We're not supposed to use water on the floors, but we do. By sealing them every year, we at least get some more life out of them, you know, so I figured, you know, why not one more time?
Yeah, I just thought
It's
that,
easier to clean, it doesn't buckle when they get water in between, so.
thank you.
I would like to add that, with the help of Kevin, what we're trying to do going forward is to have a program, a strategy behind all these AFG projects. Talking about the security cameras, we're putting together again a plan behind that. Hopefully at some point we can have all the cameras on the one platform where we are using technology that we can have access on a real basis. We're looking into that. And in another thing I would like to mention is that we have flexibility in the AFG. So once we get the approval, if we identify a need of working on any project that follows the guidelines of the ministry, we can do that modification, and we don't need to report to the ministry. It's really flexible. So again, I actually want to thank Kevin, because I have been asking so many questions about this. I'm telling you, like, a lot of hours were invested in this plan, and more is going to happen in the next months. The idea is, as I am saying, sorry for the broken record, I sound like that, do not leave money on the table. So that is what I have been working with Kevin, and thank you again, Kevin, for your help on this.
Thank you.
Trustee Horn?
I'd just like to thank Kevin for taking the effort to look at how we can extend the life of what you were talking flooring, but clearly you're looking at extending life of all sorts of things we have. So I'd just like to point out that that's effort that you put in, and thank you for that.
The report is lovely. I will say that the breakdown is.
I had a great teacher.
But that's good. I mean, you have a good partnership. I like seeing things on paper.
It
Thank
just
you.
gives everybody an idea of what
Yeah.
we're up against.
Yeah.
right?
Just a reminder, I do have a speakers list going.
Sorry.
Did you have something? Okay, wonderful, thank you. Great, does that feel complete? Wonderful.
So, 0.7.3, 2025-26 annual budget and by law. If
I'm gonna get my.
Good.
So, when we hear this report, there will be pauses and, Enrique will be asking for questions at set times and we'll just let him continue his report until there's a pause. Thank you.
Yes. Can you go to the next slide, please? Next one, please. This is the agenda for tonight. We have a strategic, in the last meetings, we have been talking about the strategic plan, so we will pass this one for this presentation. We will be talking about the budget timeline, ABC meeting dates, fund accounting overview, the 2024-25 reserves status, pressures and possibilities, operating grant comparison, 2025-26 operating preliminary budget. I will go over the projected reserves, considering the scenarios included in today's presentation. Special purpose overview, budget by law, and next steps and questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. So this is the same budget timeline that you're very familiar with. As usual, I just like to point out a couple of few reminders. So that top portion is the current year 24-25 amended budget. The bottom portion is for next year's 25-26 preliminary budget. And today we are going over the 25-26 preliminary budget, which is the bottom portion. So the deadline is the same as usual. It is June 30th. And our intention is to do the first bylaw reading tonight. So this is our ABC meeting dates. So we already had the first 3 meetings. And as I mentioned on the prior slide, our intention for tonight's meeting is to do the first bylaw reading. And I'll just pass it back on to Enrique.
Thank you. So in the past, I have mentioned that the school district receives funding from the Ministry of Education from 3 different funds or pockets of money. The first one is operating fund, the second one is a special purpose fund, and the third one is a capital fund. So if we go, so what I did is the next slide is going to provide more information, so hopefully the public can have a better understanding of what I mean, or what we mean when we talk about the operating or special purpose funds or capital funds. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So these are the examples of funding approved by the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Infrastructure at the end of April 2025. The operating fund, the operating grant provided by the Ministry of Education is the main source of revenues for our school district, helps to cover operating expenses as salaries, benefits, and services and supplies. It considers 27 million in revenues for this school year. The special purpose funds includes funds as community link, feeding features, classroom enhancement fund, between others. 3.6 million approximately has been received at the end of April. Just to give you an idea, the special purpose funds includes around from 35 to 40 different funds. So it's different pockets of money. Next slide. Then capital funds are, I know that many of you are know what the school district is working on. And anyways, I included this slide to again give explain now or give the examples of the projects that we're working on the major capital plans or projects. Seismic replacement of the middle school. We know that we have received approval up to $126 million for the project. As you know, early works construction started last January. Childcare facility, we have received an approval, budget approval of up to 13.7 million. And we are in process of selecting the architect for the project. As you can imagine, just these two projects involve a lot of our team members, a lot of time, and we have just a short, a small team working on different hats. Anyways, those are the numbers for the major capital projects. Minor capital projects for the period April 2024 to March 2025, we received $1.8 million. The projects that the money was used for the following projects: Roosevelt Park Elementary, HVAC upgrades; Conrad was a fire protection system replacement, phase 1; Pine Ridge playground equipment and commercial equipment. As you may remember, last month, we in March actually, we received an approval from the Minister of Infrastructure for minor capital projects. Budget approved was $1.5 million, and right now the plan or the approval actually was for the following projects: Roosevelt Park Elementary fire protection system replacement. That one is about to start. We have everything ready.
Yes,
Next month, I believe.
July.
Yeah.
First week of July.
Then we have Conrad, a fire protection system replacement, phase 2, Charles Hayes secondary, HVAC upgrades, phase 3, and commercial kitchen. And finally, annual facility grant, as we were talking, actually, annual facility grant is interesting in the way that we have two portions, so includes two pieces of funds. One piece is comes from the considered a special purpose fund, and another part, the majority, is considered capital. Annual facility grant for the period ended in March 2025 was $855,000. 135 related to or assigned as a special purpose grant, and the other piece, the remaining balance, capital grant. Again, what is the purpose of providing all this information? To give clarity or transparency to the public of what we're working on. It's not just operating fund. We're working on big, significant projects for the community, for our students. And I just wanted, before we go on over the details of budget, I just wanted to provide all this information to have a better sense of what we're doing for next year, budget-wise. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I also mentioned in our last meeting, the last two meetings probably, is what is the status of something called accumulated surplus of the school district. Basically, the school district has two portions of the accumulated surplus. One called unrestricted, and another one which is restricted. Right now, or what I have been providing during this previous meetings is just unrestricted, because it's money that we can use to technically balance the budget if need to, and also give the clarity to the public of what is the status of that surplus. So I mentioned before that at the end of June 30th, 2023, the surplus of the school district, unrestricted surplus, was $237,000. Last year, it was, the surplus for that year was $1.2 million. Mainly because the school district received around $1 million as reimbursement of expenses related to the middle school. So at the end of June, 2024, total surplus was $1.4 million. According to the amended budget, we are expecting a deficit of $455,000. Therefore, the expected ending balance of the surplus would be $1 million, around $1 million. Next slide, please. And also, previous meetings, we mentioned that according to the surplus policy is the range that we should have as surplus is around between 2% to 4% of the district operating budget. Next slide, please. We also already talked about budget pressures for next year. As we know, global financial uncertainty, I think we are still in the same status unless this morning changed something, which I don't think. A structural deficit, inflation, we're talking about 3%, give or take. A union bargaining effect, benefit premiums increase, enrollment, potential IT upgrades. Cybersecurity, potential ERP system upgrade, climate change, new ministerial legislation. So thank you. And budget possibilities for next year, we have been talking about this, a closer look at the special purpose funding, additional grants, additional sources of revenue, property development, leases, and potential expense reductions, which is something, that last item is something that I'm working on right now. And I will talk about that in the next slides.
Thank you. So this next slide is a comparison of our draft 25-26 preliminary operating grant. The dollar amounts on this slide have not changed since our last budget presentation on April 7th. So again, today I'll just go over for a quick refresher. So the first column is the draft 25-26 preliminary budget figures. The second column is the 24-25 amended budget figures, and the third column is the change between the two. These figures are just the operating grant. And when we're referring to the operating grant, it's the portion of our general operating revenue, which we receive from the Ministry of Education and Child Care. So that top row shows the student FTE that the ministry uses when calculating our operating grant. The next row shows the dollar amount of our operating grant, which is based on student FTE. The ministry has various categories in which they base their student FTE funding on, such as the basic allocation rate, the various levels of our high need students, and our Indigenous student FTE. We've gone over these categories in prior meetings, so we're not going to go over them again tonight in detail. Next slide.
Okay. So, total expected revenues for next year, as we can see it on the second column, from left to right. Total revenues is 29.3 million, and the amended budget showed 29.6. The change is a negative, a reduction in revenue of 330,877.
So yeah, just to add to what Enrique just mentioned, so on the prior slide, we showed the 222,000, which is related to the decrease in the operating grant from the Ministry of Education and Child Care. A few other factors included in this total are a projected decrease in international students, a decrease in the Microsoft settlement funding used, and a decrease in investment income. For a more detailed breakdown, you can refer to Schedule 2A of the budget package as well.
Expenses. That's an interesting category. So regarding expenses. Thank you. So this one, sorry, is a scenario one. Again, we are including two scenarios. So scenario one and a scenario two. Consider the amended budget of the current year. Sorry, let me read. Regarding expenses, it is important to mention that the amended budget of the current year serves as a base or a status quo budget for 2025-26. This is the budget which assumes to provide the same level of service and programming as has been provided in the current year, adjusted for one-time items, which I will discuss later in this presentation. Then, as you may remember, in our last open board meeting, I requested our board for an extension to present the 2025-26 budget, considering that I started work in this district last November, and I needed more time to collect and understand financial information involved. Based on the financial results at April presented earlier, and considering that I am using the amended budget of the current year as a base budget, the one-time items included in the 25-26 budget are, under this scenario, is salary. No increase in salaries for now, considering that any salary increases approved later in the year will be covered by the Ministry of Education. There is also some changes in the administrative structure of the school district happening next year. So we are assuming a reduction in expenses in that category. That's the reason we see some decreases in principals and by principal salaries, and then we see an increase in other professionals. Is just following the strategy that the school district wants to follow. And all the changes at the end of the day is to ensure that we are going to meet our strategic plans. Moving to the next, services and supplies. This is a significant item that I am including in this scenario one, and I talked about that before, is the need of a new or the upgrade of our accounting software. We have until June 2026 to either replace or stay with the same vendor. So what I'm doing in this scenario one is I am including $350,000 as the investment needed next year. It's important also to mention that there's a possibility to capitalize a portion of this investment for this project. Therefore, the impact in operating expenses could be lower depending on the type or conditions of the software. However, again, I'm including $350,000 based on the information I have right now. Also, the Secretary Treasurer needs to find savings on their services and supplies of $150,000 plus inflation effect. Why I actually propose this to the board is because based on the analysis I have been doing at the end of April, I do believe that that is something that I can meet, working together with my team, and you know, and yeah, basically reviewing the different expenses that the school district incurs. So at the end of the day, scenario number one is showing a deficit of $697,000 compared to a deficit for this year of $455,000. So it's an increase of $242,000, $243,000. However, again, there's a possibility once we identify the software provider, that portion of that 350 maybe is going to be capitalized, is basically what we do, and then amortized over X number of years. Again, it depends on the kind of product that at the end of the day we find suitable for the school district. Now, can we go to the next scenario? The next scenario is same thing as scenario one, with the difference of the accounting software. Instead of using $350,000 investment, this one would be $200,000. I did that projection just to have an idea of where we ended up financially. But my suggestion to the board is to approve a scenario one, because again, some assumptions I am using for that scenario are a little bit aggressive, and I know that. And however, I believe that it's possible to do that. Can we go to the next slide? So based on this scenario, okay. Operating grant in the revenue piece is same for scenario 1 and scenario 2. The operating grant is 89%, represents 89% of funds that we receive from the ministry, right? Of everything?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's exactly, so that's the most important piece of the grant, of the revenues that the school district receives. Next slide. Operating expenditure, we know that salaries and benefits represent 87% of total expenses. Next. And this could be salaries and benefits broken down by category. Being, of course, teachers is the most important, 43%. Next. Now, these are the projection of the accumulated surplus at the end of next school year on the scenario 1. So as I said before, the expected ending balances at June 30th, 2025 would be $1 million, around $1 million. And the deficit, projected deficit for next year would be around $700,000. Therefore, we ended up with the expected ending balance at June 2026 of $318,000. Again, I think it's important just to mention that effect of the accounting software can actually, it is the accumulated surplus. So this is like the worst case scenario, what I'm trying to say. Scenario number 2, please, is basically what is going to would change is the expected ending balance at the end of June 30th, 2026, which it would be 468 instead. Can we go to the next slide?
So this slide is showing our grand totals for our special purpose funds. As a reminder, special purpose funding is provided by both the ministry as well as other third parties for the sole purpose to carry out a function or activity. Some examples include Community Link, Feeding Futures, school generated funds, scholarships, and other ministry designated activities. So in other words, these funds are given to us, but we're also told how to use them. So you can see at the top that we are forecasting an opening balance of 1.967 million. The next section is a breakdown of our forecasted revenues, which we are forecasting to receive 6.244 million. And the next section shows our forecasted expenditures totaling 6.556 million. This would leave us with 1.655 million carried forward to the following year. And again, a more detailed breakdown of each of these programs included in the special purpose funds is shown on Schedule 3A of the budget package.
So this is as I mentioned before, I will request to the board is a motion to approve the 25-26 budget under the scenario 1. Then these are the numbers that we will be presenting or submitting before the ministry. Total operating expenses of $30 million. Special purpose funds, total expense of 6.5 million. Capital fund, total expense of 1.5 million. And capital fund, tangible capital assets purchased from local capital city grant. Then total budget, including all these pieces, again, is not just the operating piece, but it's also the special and capital funds would be 38.2 million compared to the 38.3 million for the as the amended budget for this year. So we would have a negative variance of $58,000.
I'll just add too. Just for reference point, this is statement 2 of your budget package as well. And this is, as it says on the slide, this is for scenario 1.
And again, the difference between scenario 1 and 2 is just the investment for the new accounting software.
Yeah, so this slide is just showing our next steps. So again, I've mentioned it already, but our intention tonight is to do the first budget bylaw reading. And then our intention for the next meeting is to do the second and third readings. And I think we're ready to open up for any questions.
Yes, please.
Trustee Lauren, trustee Beal.
I'll start with, you mentioned at the very beginning effective financial pressures outside the school district from what's going on with like all sorts of things, tariffs and inflation and all those things, right? How much variation is built into these two scenarios? And where is it?
That's a really interesting
That's-
question.
Yeah. Or is it everywhere?
So my approach here is I'm broken down our expenses in 2 pieces. And this is just talking about the operating fund. Majority of the expenses, 87%, are related to salaries and benefits. Majority, again, is salary. So as I said before, for next year, right now, the assumption is no increases because we are in negotiations. And the assumption is whatever increase is going to be covered by the ministry. So that is 87% of whatever it is going to be covered by the ministry. So that's the reason I'm basically limiting the effect on around $3.7 million, which is the services and supplies. So even though I said, I do believe that I can find a way to cover any inflation, I know what would be my percentage, right? What I see so far, again, is that results at the end of April, I'm sorry, I need to say that again, is last month, that is the reason I asked the board, please give me more time. My biggest enemy right now is time. So again, one more month of financial information gives me, more clarity. Although I don't know the trends, and we're working on that with briefing, is what normally happens during May and June, that suddenly our expenses could go way higher. So we have been talking about accruals, expense accruals, revenues, all that fun stuff in accounting work. Very boring, but this is very interesting at the same time. So that is what I'm doing in this projection. Is again, I'm limiting what would be the effect of tariffs, what would be the effect in inflation. The reality is major capital projects. Remember that slide? That's the reason I wanted to kind of break down where are the major risks, major capital projects. That is already with the ministry. They already approved a budget and we have my project manager working on that. Minor capital projects, same thing. We already have an amount approved by the ministry. If we need to go back at some point, they are informed. Those are my new friends. And then we are limiting special purpose funds and operating funds. So hopefully all this information kind of gives you an idea of, okay, so Enrique is saying that it's going to cover all inflation. Yes, but it's on a small line of the P&L. So hopefully that provides a context.
Trustee Beal? I guess my concern isn't always gonna be my concern, and I'll always address it at every budget meeting I've come to in many, many years. The two categories that I see get hurt the worst in this budget, it's always going to be the same, EAs and support staff. And that doesn't sit well with me, because they need to mesh together with teachers. We need to provide those support staffs. We need to have those people in the classrooms or outside of the classrooms to support the students. So when I'm very disheartened to see that again, that we're cutting 2 departments that I feel are essential to the success of our students. And I don't have no one's giving me any reason for it, like
That one is an interesting, they want to provide some information about the year. So basically is when we were putting together this amended budget, we were using some projections. Okay, as I said before, we're working on improving some reports to have better clarity. So when you see those reductions, it's basically we're projecting what we have been spending for the last, it was February, March, actually, probably February to June, right? So we are saying the reality is the assumptions that we use in the amended budget are different than that's happening. So that is the reason with the projection that we're doing for next year. That is the reason what we're saying is we're doing an adjustment in the estimation that we are using. It's an accounting measure that we are using. And again, that is part of what we are working in accounting.
So you're trying to tell me that services are not gonna be reduced because the funding is not quite there yet?
That is what
That's
I'm
what I
saying.
need to,
That is what I'm saying. I'm not talking about they were going to reduce, right now, I'm not saying that.
that's what I need to hear.
What
I
I'm
need to be
saying-
convinced that someone's not gonna call me up and say, hey, my kid's not getting the necessities they need. And I know Andrew is looking at me, and I know that Andrew knows I'm passionate. There's people in the audience that I've sat here with, so, and I know that everyone around this table all feels the same way. We want success for our children. I think that when we have those people there to support those children, I know personally, when I have someone to support me, I feel good. I feel like I feel like I want to be protective. I want to do, I want to reach for the sky, the stars, right? So that's all I'm saying is I want to protect those essential parts in our budget. So that's what I need to hear.
I do have a trustee Meyer and trustee Horn. However, my question is just in clarity for this, is what I heard is this projection is running status quo for what we saw for 24-25.
Exactly. So again, this one is when I go back and we're working in accounting to improve our forecasting. So, and I just want to be clear with this. Before I come here and suggest to lay off people, I will do my best to over those services and supplies and ask the questions. And the team knows that I'm asking a lot of questions about the invoices, about backups, about the internal control, because that is where I do believe that there are areas to improve before I want to say let's reduce teachers or any other position really. Because at some point I also think not for cutting positions, at some point you have to analyze that and say now because we are cutting this position, especially in finance and accounting, or maybe in other areas as well, but then maybe you are losing money because of that. Maybe you don't have enough staff to do some projections or pay attention on some expenses, and then at the end of the day, you are losing more money. Anyways, I'm not there yet. I'm just saying my analysis right now to try to reduce expenses, not using classroom expenses. We're talking about other type of expenses. That is my least preference right now. I'm looking at other legal expenses, allocation of expenses. As you can see, there are different buckets of money that I'm working with my team and to ensure that we're allocating expenses properly.
Just to provide even further clarity, I know this a couple times, a few different ways, but again, these are, this scenario doesn't include any reductions to staffing positions. So the dollar amounts of the decreases is just like Enrique was explaining, is due to forecasting. So at the time of when the amended budget is done, we just take a point in time, year to date, and then analyze going forward. But of course, as you guys can imagine, there's a bunch of moving pieces all the time, right? So some vacancies, some people filling in and just moving parts. Salary changes between individuals, for example, if a staff member does change in a position. And so those are the different factors that have to be considered.
Thank you. Trustee Meyer?
Yeah, I had a couple. You already answered my 3% inflation, so that was good. I was worried about that one. My other one is just on scenario one, under employee benefits. So under assumptions, it has employee benefits at 25%. Can you just explain that? why that's
Yes,
there?
so, right now, we are in around 24 point, and change. Which basically is the portion of total salaries and benefits. So how much represents the benefit piece? In other words, when, as a whole, when we have someone, we know that the school district is going to pay 24 point and change in benefits. What I'm doing is I'm using 25%. Why? Because we know that we're having conversations with our
Sorry, premiums.
exactly for the benefits. It's not something that we control. Why? Because it's based on the benefits that the school district provides to all the employees, and we have different categories, a different benefit plan. But just to answer your question is, I'm using this 25% to cover any increase between the actual rate. That one I cannot control, we cannot control, really. But I am just including a little bit of margin to absorb any increase in benefits, and we know that are coming in the next month or so.
I believe I might have mentioned that at the last meeting as well, that this is province-wide, I think, for
Right.
the most part for school districts, we're all struggling with the increase in benefit premiums. So something we're working on, but like Enrique mentioned, it's kind of out of our control for the most part.
Right. Okay, perfect.
And yeah, we're working on it, so we don't have an exact figure at this time.
Now, also, just to add to that, part of expense is, and probably you remember, when I started working for the school district, we were talking about the revenues and why at the beginning of the school year, we have these deficits, and I said, well, and I said, because the reality is the ministry starts the school year providing around 3% of the total funding in the first months. And by the end of the school year, they provide the majority of the funding. So one of the ideas, and it's part of the plan, so just for you to understand, is an option where I can go to the ministry and say, you know what, we're having deficits in these months. So I ask your help to actually, instead of giving us 3% of the funds at the beginning of the school year, help us changing that trend. So at the end of the day, my idea is to, on a monthly basis, break down, so then we can put that money in our investment account and then generate interest income. So those are kind of the strategies that I'm working on putting together. It's really hard to put everything in a plan for a presentation like this, but again, it's part of what I have been working in during these months, and part of the strategy that is also behind to meet the goals that I'm presenting for this scenario, number one.
And I just have one comment, if I can still go. And then, so I just wanted to voice that in scenario one, which I think is the better scenario, the $697,000 deficit. Even though that's gonna be covered by our surplus, eventually that's gonna have to be covered by our operating grants. And so this time next year, we're gonna have to be looking at cutting at least $669,000 if Enrique can't work miracles, and if we don't get funding, and, you know, we can scream from the rafters.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs.
You know, all of that, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
So I see what you're saying. Again, looking at the trends at the end of April, I have some positive thoughts that hopefully those are accomplished, and then I think we will be talking about different, again, this scenario is, this is really, in my mind, conservative. And again, many things are happening in the back end. So hopefully, again, like this year, there were no, I think, big changes, not for work, but I did, because actually the work that has been done since a couple of years, I know that. But hopefully we can have good news. Again, I don't want to say something
Yeah.
that, but so far, I can say, what I have reviewing, and again, I have been working with Britney about that, seems to be positive. So I will leave it to that.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
But
Brittany?
I'll just add to just a reminder that 697,000 deficit, that does include the 350 for the new software, which would be a
Right.
one-time.
That's right,
So
thank you
it'd be
for that,
about cut in half.
thank you for that.
Trustee Horn?
So I have a few questions, so please bear with me, but I can be put on the list a few times, that's okay. So difference from 1 to 2 is basically the software change. What is the effect of the delay in the software by only producing part of the cash? And is scenario 1 completely paying for the software?
yes, two things is, there is, probably you know this better than I. I think you have been, the school district has been talking about a new accounting software or an upgrade for how many years? Like two?
Whole time here.
4, 5? Well, guess what? There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow in this one. It's we need to work on that before the end of June. I mean, we need to work on this one probably in the next 2 months. Like, I need to come to the board and say, okay, this is the proposal. Because now, once I identify the options, which are pretty limited, I have had different conversations about this. And this week I'm going to be at the BC Asphalt. And hopefully I come back with some suggestions. So that's it. Like, this is the options, and then start working on the upgrade or the modernization. That's it. Because otherwise, if we stay with the current vendor, next year our annual fee, based on what they are saying, and they could go to $1 million. Just to put things in perspective. So there is no tomorrow for me on this item.
So then why do we have a scenario that has an option that's not available to us? In other words, option 2, you're saying is not.
Oh, no, scenario 2 is actually 200,000 instead of the
Yes.
350.
Yes.
Scenario 2 is $200,000.
Yeah.
Now, that one is interesting, and I put it together. Why? Because again, I still don't have the proposal for the accounting software. I have had some conversations. The 200 is like the nice to have, because could be a mix between annual fee and implementation. And that, again, that's the reason I come with the scenario 1, because it's more conservative and gives me a little bit more range of decisions. That's the reason. That's basically the difference between the scenario 2 and the scenario 1. But both, at the end of the day, covers the need of replacing accounting software.
So you don't know at this point what the total cost is gonna be, basically.
I have the idea of 350. I have a confirmation about the 350. But again, I'm doing my best to hopefully decrease it. But again, that scenario 1 is the most conservative.
I understand. Yeah, I'm only asking for the difference.
Yeah.
Is all I wanted to know.
Brittany?
I just wanted to add, I think part of your question too, just to make sure you have it answered, was asking if this scenario 1, for example, includes the full cost or if it's.
That's right, that's what's gonna continue with that, yeah.
Yeah, so it is, the 350 is the cost that he's projecting, so yeah, that's not.
So we don't see further cost at this point, at least.
And I think more so what it's trying to say is 350 is the estimated cost, but then as we mentioned, if we are able to capitalize it,
Yep.
that will decrease that fee. to
Yeah,
350.
yeah. Thank you
Is that complete?
for that question, yes.
Okay, so you have-
Go ahead. Yeah. So, you spoke about, I think actually, Enrique, you spoke about, the PRMS build and the childcare facility build are taking time of our staff. Are we costing that time to those projects?
Yes.
Are we costing all of our time to those projects or are we leaking?
Okay, that's a different
Right.
question, eh? A different, and it
And
is
how
different-
much do you suspect we
It's
are
a
leaking?
different answer. We are in conversations with our project manager because there is a budget already approved for management. And in my last meeting, I said, well, I shouldn't be in this call, and neither Andrew, because we don't have budget for that. So right now, we are having conversations with them and through them, for hopefully the ministry can reassign part of the funds that have been approved for all the time that Andrew and me are spending in the project. So again, there are different pieces moving, but yeah, just to let you know.
Keep going, wanna roll? Yeah, monies came from the PRMS rebuild that we received back. We've already eaten slightly into it. We suspect that with this deficit, we're gonna eat a big chunk into it more.
Would you go back to that slide?
Shows one of the early slides,
The one with the major capital?
shows the return funds coming back from the middle school that we spent already.
It's 23.
Thank you. Brady.
Okay, sorry, so we're talking about the 1.055.
Yes.
Okay. They're just stunning my thumbs here. So so what happened is, I did an analogy for some legal fees at the beginning of this school year, and I identified around $15,000 that were incorrectly allocated from in the operating fund and should be allocated to the middle school. So something that I'm working on, I have not had a chance to spend a lot of time on this, but this is what you're saying. At some point, and I talked with Brittany about this, I don't know when the information was presented to the ministry saying, hey, as of today, it's 1,055,000. But from that time until when the time that we started allocating,
We spent more money.
exactly. So
Yeah.
my question was like, I need to have that information so I can go back and say, hey, yeah, we received 1.055, but there is a bunch of, hopefully, a portion of expenses that probably has not been included in the project and not recovered. So I have it in my checklist, but at this point, I don't know how much. I know that should be or could be something available there, and it's going to help us in the bottom line. But
We were given numbers from our prior person, and they were not small numbers comparatively.
The only thing is I cannot go back during that time frame, right? So it's from the moment that was approved the 1.055 till the moment
Yes,
that we
correct.
started allocating.
That's
That is the, I think,
I understand that.
the only, the reality. I doubt that the ministry would be willing to say, hey, you know, you submit something from previous years and now you're saying that it is more.
Yeah, and so the other part of my question, which so we've used up a little bit of that 1,055 already. And because now we're down to 1,016 expected balance. Right? And with the scenario one, we're gonna eat 3/4 of it up, or 2/3 of it up. Is that correct? Am I correct in that number?
On paper, yes.
Yes?
Again, my projection, but probably going to be at the end of this school year, probably I will have more information to provide based on what I have seen at the end of April.
Okay, and so what you're saying to me is that you're being especially conservative in your numbers so that you expect, but you can't guarantee
This is the worst case scenario in my mind.
in your mind. So yeah, I want that everybody to listen to that because that affects what we think about these numbers.
And just think about it, about the investment for the county and so forth. If I find or we find a product based on the characteristic of the software that we are going to be able to, it's called capitalize and then amortize or depreciate over, I think the policy in the school district is 5 years. So we're talking, again, I don't want to come and say, hey, suddenly we're going to have a surplus or whatever, because again, I have been in this job for how many months? 7? Yeah. So, but these are really conservative, and a lot of these will be, I will be able to provide more information when, at the end of this school year. So, yeah, just to.
Before I go to you, does anyone else have any questions? Trustee Horn?
Thank you. One more. We're out of funding protection. We lost 20 FTEs, cost of 200 plus. Correct?
Yep.
Did that take us back into funding protection?
No, we don't get funding protect, oh,
That's
sorry.
my question. Like to hear an answer, please. And how close are we to that line? Do you know, or maybe you can come back to that later?
There is,
Right?
that we can go back into it, but I just don't know what it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's supposed to
we
be
can-
1.5%.
We can get that later.
Yeah.
But we haven't met and you already know that, that's fine. But thank you for answering that.
Trustee Beal?
Just for clarity, funding protection was given to us based on the Felt Mill closing, and we lost X amount of students. And in order for us to ever get funding protection again, you'd have to see the port close, you have to see industry close where the population would decline below what we've got now, James. So funding protections only when a community is at risk. That's the only reason that government gives you funding protection, so let's not pray for that.
But,
And let's address the table.
yep, and
Sorry.
Thank
I
you.
just wish to ask the question because we've had funding protection in the past. And I want it told to me whether we're in it or not in it or whether, what's the chance. Thank you.
I think, I could be wrong, but I think, it went for 4 years before last. 4 years in like 19, 20, 21, 22. I think those are the years that, you receive, that the school district received, funding support.
For clarity, we've been working our way out of funding protection. We can go back. Thank you. Please.
We've had funding protection for many, many years. It just decreased over the amount till we got to where we're 0 now.
Maybe 14.
Oh, at least 14.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question. So so my concern is next year we're sitting here and say on paper, this is what's happened. And we have, and I know we can't project the future, but just for consideration, and we're sitting here with an ending balance of 318,000. And then we're looking at more cuts, right? We're sitting with a quote surplus of 318,000 next year at this time, potentially on paper, worst case scenario. Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you.
The other thing is, yeah, as we can see, June 30th, 2023, the surplus was 237,000, just to keep things into perspective.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
it's,
Thank you.
it is not,
Right,
wouldn't be as low as, a year ago, 2 years ago.
yes, no, thank you, by the way. So the $1 million back saved us in so many ways. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Please.
I'm just gonna add one comment. Just taking a look at scenario 1. The details are in your package too. I don't know if that was mentioned for scenario 1 and 2. So that deficit of 697,000, again, that includes the 350 one-time cost for the software. So, the 697,000 minus 350, that brings us to a deficit of 347, which is more, is closer to the 318,000.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Questions? Trustee Pucci, have you any questions?
No questions. I did that. So as Bendora, I did the math on the 350 minus to find out where we were. So we have the equivalent of 2 years of losses and $350,000 in our current as of today.
Thank you. Trustee Meyer.
I'd like to make a motion to approve scenario 1 for budget of 2020.
I would second that.
Thank you, trustee Pucci. We have a motion on the floor. Would you care to speak to that motion? This is for first reading to remind everybody. Second readings will happen at the next meeting. So all in favor of that motion?
We haven't done the first reading yet.
Yeah, I got a question on that.
Please.
So if we're voting on on the budget, is it just as a direction at this point, or is it complete done deal?
Just the first reading. First reading.
I'll make a motion to give first reading to the bylaw.
We need to do something with that first motion first,
Yes.
I think.
What did you trustee Myers motion?
Your first reading, so I'll just rescind it then.
Thank you.
But don't I have to pass the motion and then we do the annual budget bylaw?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, otherwise.
You have
what
to
do we
choose,
approve?
you have to choose scenario one and then do a reading, my understanding.
Right. Yes, thank you. Thank you, trustee Pucci.
Okay, so I'll keep my motion on the table.
Thank you. Could you repeat the motion made by trustee Myers?
To approve scenario one.
Thank you. And seconded by trustee Pucci. So all in favor?
No, sorry, I got a question.
Oh, yes, please.
So we're approving budget one just as a direction, because once we do third reading, we then do this again and approve budget one.
So what,
Is that correct?
what we're doing is my understanding is, what is happening at this moment, the motion is to approve scenario one. Then after that has been approved, we would do the first reading for scenario one. And then we would come back in our next meeting and we would do the second and third, readings.
For scenario one, gotcha. Yep, thank you.
Does that feel complete for everyone? So we have a motion on the floor to approve scenario one. All in favor? So moved, thank you. Wishes of the board.
I'd like to make a motion that, first reading be given to bylaw, whatever number it is. Sorry, I don't.
It's in the
Thank
package.
you, trustee Sanchez. So we have our motion. And all in favor? Great, and we'll have that by trustee Meyer.
I was.
Oh, yes. Second. It's in this one.
Yeah, I got it. Annual budget bylaw.
Please.
Bylaw of the Board of Education of School District Number 52 Prince Rupert called the board to adopt the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2025-2026 pursuant to section 113 of the School Act, RSBC 1996 C 412 as amended from time to time called the Act. 1, the board has compiled with the provisions of the Act, ministerial orders, and Ministry of Education and Child Care policies respecting the annual budget adopted by this bylaw. 2, this bylaw may be cited as School District Number 52 Prince Rupert Annual Budget Bylaw for the fiscal year 2025-26. 3, the attached statement 2 showing the estimated revenue and the expense for the 2025-2026 fiscal year and the total budget bylaw amount of $38,258,616 for the 2025-2026 fiscal year was prepared in accordance with the Act. 4, Statement 2, 4, and Schedules 2 to 4 are adopted as the annual budget of the board for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Read a first time on the 20th day of May 2025.
And all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that discussion and consideration, and thank you very much for your and presentation. Great. Operation Department Report 7.4.
Thank you. I will open the floor for the trustees in case they have any questions about the operation department report.
Trustee Horn?
Thank you, Kevin, for the report. I've heard from the public how pleased they are with the playground equipment and greenhouse or French garden parks, as you show in your report. How especially pleased they are that we are working on these items for our students, and to help our students out with what they live in the schools. And it's good to hear that you're prepping for the summer, which I'm doing too, but not quite that way. And and the other one was to do with the bus, the 2013 microbus. And is this because we're getting more use out of other buses? So we've decided that that bus needs to be.
Yeah,
Next up.
it's a spare, a backup.
Mm-hmm.
So we have still our term still in the shop, so. They're getting old, they get lots of use, so I'm just thinking of the future.
Same idea as the floors, you're just going
Yeah,
through things
yeah,
that maybe we could use.
Yeah,
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
and other than that, it costs us, we have to use cabs to bus them around and
Yes.
we upgrade the bus.
Any further questions? Thank you for this report.
Thank you.
Thank you, and on the 7.5, April, information technology department reports, I will open the floor for the trustees in case there are any questions.
Trustee Vaughn?
So I'd like to thank your IT department down there. Because you've been optimizing the device performance, so you're doing the same thing that Kevin's been doing by making our equipment work better. And so it's better for the students without having to replace it. So thank you for doing that work. Also for the server replacement, I got two questions. One, you may not know the answers and you can come back, that's okay. Is there greater maintenance cost with the new servers? And is there software fees that are greater? So maybe those two questions I can put to, and I can get answers back later, maybe the next meeting.
Yes,
Does that sound fair?
yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna know those answers.
We'll have those questions noted in
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We'll have those questions noted. Thank you, Tamara.
That's it.
Thank you, thank you. Finance and Building Committee. Greenhouse Committee.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that to, superintendent.
Thank you. In front of your, in your package, it's not in front of you, but they should be in front of you. The package is, it has information from Eco Trust Canada. Eco Trust Canada, you'll recall, in the past, we had looked at their proposal and approved it in principle. Now they've come back to say, okay, they have, it's a large sum of money, on a spreadsheet that they updated me. It's up to $700,000. With that money, the plan is to build 3 greenhouses. Five. Westview is a proposed site. Conrad and Pine Ridge. And we've discussed the locations where these might go. And they're looking for approval. These greenhouses would be set up by them. There's no cost to the district. They would be, the growing would be done by their staff, their volunteers, but working with our students and our staff to show them how you can grow vegetables and things. And then most of the produce that is created is then given to the food program in our schools.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the proposal.
Seconder for that motion, Trustee Dalton. Would you care to speak further to
No,
that?
I've reviewed the proposal on finance and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful gift that they're providing us as long as we ensure that as time goes by, the maintenance is there, the people are there, the volunteers are there, and the children participate.
Thank you. I have Trustee Pucci and then Trustee Horn.
In favor of the project. Just, I think it'd be important to note that logistically speaking, the lowest priority should be given to Westview, as there won't be students and staff there to participate. And so if we can do it on active school properties, I think it would be a better service to the overall program. But yes, great program.
Trustee Horn?
You said that there's no cost to the school district,
Correct.
correct? But when we get supplied food that they grow, we have to pay for that, does that, or is it
No, that's
gifted to the school?
Yeah.
So we're making a benefit, basically, yeah.
correct.
And the teaching and stuff, we won't need to do any construction, there won't be any costs there,
Correct.
correct? It's pretty much just the property, are gonna be all at schools, so, yeah.
And, sorry, Madam Chair, we did speak with the city about any sort of permitting issues. They've got that all done. So, the cost of hooking up electricity, if they want it, is borne by them. And same with water. I mean, we can give them a hose, but if they want anything fancier, then that's their cost, they'll pay for it.
Thank you.
Kevin, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, they have their own, watering system, and so we initially have to fill up their system, and then with the rain, hopefully keeps up. The reason we picked Westview is they are spec to have, they're 25 wide by 100 feet long. So, I mean, that would be the only thing that won't impact our other schools. So right now, they want to put one up there and then two we pick a location.
So the substantial
Yeah,
space cost,
the
basically.
smaller ones are 25 feet by 26, so it's still a fair size. And they'll be put on basically, on pads. We won't have to make a slab, we can just stick them on pads.
Sorry, I'll go with another question, went on the list.
First I have trustee
Yep.
Beal.
I'd like to make the motion to extend.
Seconded. Trustee Meyer, all in favor? Wonderful, thank you. Trustee Horn?
Have we looked at other sites, because we do have several sites instead of Westview.
Correct, trustee Horn, we did talk to them, one of the first questions that we asked in numerous meetings was, sunlight. Are you gonna get sunlight if you put it here or there? And they have mechanisms for measuring this. When we suggested Seal Cove, they said actually Seal Cove is not down in a valley, that it it does get enough sunlight, so they're still open to Seal Cove.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor. Discussion complete. Thank you. All in favor? So moved. Thank you very much. Is that complete, trustee Meyer?
Yeah.
Thanks. Framework for enhanced student learning, trustee Horn?
We haven't met since the last meeting.
Thank you. And Senator Pond, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you look in your package on page 29, there's a completion rate graph there. And so thanks, Roberta. She started this conversation today, which is really great. And so I just wanted to, I won't take a whole lot of time, but we have seen substantial rises in completion rates, especially our 6-year rate in 23-24. And so the Ministry of Education puts out the school district reports on their website, which is open, available to the public. People can go and have a look at the report. This particular graph is there, and it's just a quick and dirty to show that we're at in a 5-year range, we're at the top end of the range. And the graph reflects the 6-year rates, which shows our students at 92.3% completion, which is above the provincial average. And I want to say that again, it's above the provincial average of 91.4. So we have other districts calling us to say, what are you guys doing? Which is really, I mean, we've never had that before, so that's pretty exciting. So that's for all students. And then the completion rate for Indigenous students for 6 years is at 82.4%, which is far above the provincial average right now of 75.5%. So we look at this data in all kinds of ways. And what we looked at with Roberta was we were looking at the rates for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. So what I've shared with you is all students and then just Indigenous students for 6 years. And then if you look at our 5-year rate, and of course we aspire to the 5-year rate. We want all of our students to be graduating in 5 years, not 6 years. I mean, that would be ideal, right? So that's a really important rate to us. And when we see that we're trending upwards there as well, we're pretty excited about that. So, on pages 30, you can see a different version of the 6-year rate. This is the data that we collect in Power BI. The ministry sends this, our data for our district, and I download that. And then, so that's for all students and Indigenous students on page 30 and 31. And then on page 32 and 33, we're showing the 5-year rates. So you'll see that our 5-year rates are still trending up. Oh, they went a little bit down for all students, yes, in this last year. But we're still, the province is at 86.6, we're at 80.2. So we're looking very good for 5 years, and better than we've been for a long time. And then for Indigenous students, 64.8% is the provincial 5-year rate, and we're at 61.1, which is an increase from 57.3 last year. So we are celebrating these rates, and we're thinking about like why these improvements. And we've got the board and the Indigenous Education Council, the framework for enhancing student learning, senior leadership team, our school teams, which include our teachers and education assistants and our students. We're all looking at the data just to look at where gaps are in achievement for our school district. And we have been doing this, but for the last 5 years that I've been a director of instruction. And we've been using the Equity in Action framework to help us to review structures and practices and data, and to recommend new strategies or structures. And so over the last 5 years, there's a few things that we've done that we feel have made a difference. We've put Indigenous coach mentors in the high school, and Pacific Coast, and even at the middle school to help students on their pathway to graduation. Charles Hayes has a cohort of students who moved together from grades 10 to 12 with the same teacher and an education assistant, because we believe relationships matter, and we're finding that that's really helping for students to stay on track for graduation. The leadership teams in our schools are meeting regularly. Some are meeting every week to look at student needs and assign team members to support students. This is really important work. The graduation club at Charles Hayes is helping potential graduates coursework, as well as in applying for scholarships and bursaries and to post-secondary institutions. Learning services teachers at Charles Hayes now have a support block for students on their caseload who might need support with graduation. And they're finding that's really helping as well. And we're excited to see that PCS is featuring each of their graduates on their website. I don't know if people have noticed that this year, so we're pretty excited about that. A couple of other things, we have had Indigenous family resource workers supporting our students and families for many, many years, and they continue to do that incredible work. Plus, Roberta mentioned the Reaching Home grant that Charles Hayes has secured, which has provided them with a food sovereignty mentor and an equity mentor. And these two individuals are doing amazing work to support our students and our graduates as well. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a news story on this, so watch for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions? I'll see you on.
I think it's great to see that numbers have picked up so well, and we can tell that from the work that you've done to collect all this information for us. And so when we do framework work, we're going through all those responses and all of the information that you've been able to gather, and also the help from the ministry with data. So thank you for doing all that work.
Any further questions?
No, just thank you, Sandy. And I'm sure you guys work well together getting all this data.
Thank you very much. I hear it's a huge collaborative, super exciting. And I want to share that I know Andrew has a vision, and I think that that vision we're seeing it in the data as well. So thank you. Thank you.
Sure, Tori, can I just add that the data that Roberta was sharing is coming from the How Are We Doing report, which is also public on the ministry website, so people, yeah, can access that.
Thank you. Provincial Council. Trustee Horn.
We had a meeting at the AGM. There's going to be no fee increase for inflation. It will stay the same. AGM had less attending, so it was $2,000 cheaper. Academy, $5,000 cheaper. But apparently the provincial council is spending all of that and some. AGM will move to Hyatt to save money because they figure that they can have everybody in one hotel and not do overflow. Meal costs are higher, and they were talking about advocacy, so I made sure that they knew, I stood up and made a point of saying that we heavily rely on BCSDA's advocacy because we are in such a remote location, and there are other places that are even more remote than us that rely on them. So I made sure, because I started talking about it, so I better say something and make sure that they got told not to fiddle with that. And the other point that came up was Victoria's appointed trustee, which is still in place. And so we made sure that they'd said they're advocating for it, and so if we need to do anything further as a board, we can if we wish to. But for the foreseeable future, there's not a change in Victoria's situation. Okay, but they are still paying their fees, because I did ask that question. So the government pays the fee as if it was a full board.
My understanding is they're not changing that until election.
Right.
Thank you. Any questions for Trustee Horn? Policy Committee, Trustee Horn.
Probably when the papers in. Okay, there's no policies for approval as none was sent out last meeting, after the last meeting. But there are 3 policies for review. I'll make a motion to send and then I'll speak to them all. So a motion to send the 3 policies to stakeholders for review will be 6710 records management, 2330 service awards policy, and 5120 naming policy.
Seconder to that motion, Trustee Dalton, thank you. Please, Trustee Horn.
So records management policy came up in a report from the auditor. And if anyone looks at 2317 in the report, you will find that, it's 2316 in the report. Apologize for that. Records management regulation policy came up because we weren't doing things as they suggest. And there's a whole list of things they want done, but the biggest one, and it's possible just to do this one for now, and then because, is to form a management committee that is responsible for records management for the entire organization. The committee could meet once a year and make sure that the records have gone where they should go, right? So would the board be open to doing such a thing? And does anybody got any ideas on that? And then the other things that they want done, annually reviewed, which the committee could do, clear guidance for what you're doing with them, that committee can do that too. Proper steps for what they have to do, it can be done by the committee. Identification of the consequences for violations can also be done by the committee. So we don't have to make any change to the current records management policy. If the board's willing to form that committee.
Thank you. Trustee Meyer.
I have a question on that.
Please.
And is this coming out of the KPMG report?
Yes.
Right? Okay, all right.
Trustee Meyer.
Sorry. And did you want us to come back? like, we're sending this out for review, but did you
There's no
want, did you
change.
want an answer, if we want a committee like today?
Well, what will happen to the current records management policy is that it will add to it the fact that there will now be a committee formed to manage it. And should the board wish that today, and then it can go out and be sent out. I would suggest that the board does that just for the reason that it's gonna get tied up in these meetings instead of in a committee where it could be done way easier.
And what I would offer is this is sent out for review, so the board as well has the month to review.
Yes,
and,
correct.
do any amendments, additions, feedback, and it will come back to the next meeting as what you heard from stakeholders, rights holders, partners.
So perhaps if we make a decision on that before I move on to the next two while it's still fresh.
I think I'd like to motion it to be tabled till June to form a committee.
Thank you. So
Okay.
if what I hear is you're wanting this to go out for feedback before we move forward on that.
Exactly.
Don't think we need a motion because that's the.
No, probably not.
steps of the
You know,
policy.
so the records management policy will be amended
Oh,
to say it has a committee will be formed. And that will go for review so people can comment back, and then next month we'll talk about it again.
Yeah.
Sound good? Does that satisfy, Janet, what you were talking about?
Yeah, I just don't want to jump into making a committee tonight when
No?
we need to send it out for feedback. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, it's in a motion to be sent out.
Yep.
It's not to be approved, right?
Thanks. So we'll just follow proper.
Yep.
Our procedures.
Proper procedures, yeah. The next one, the service award policy had some changes, so I can ask, Andrew, what changes were made to that one? I think it was something to do with the advertising, correct?
Trustee Horn, Madam Chair, we did discuss it, but it was up to the board if they'd like to make that change.
Right,
Or
okay, I see.
if you want to, you have policy, however, we can create a regulation. We were talking about, social media and publishing names on social media. I talked to the, person who's in charge of this, and she said that they do interview each employee to see if they give permission for their name to be put out there. And she didn't think it would be a problem to all, to say, okay, it'll go in the newspaper and on social media.
So basically, the change we're asking for in this policy is that it will no longer be put to newspaper, but to social media. Correct? Yeah. Sure. Well, something like
We
that.
can be both if you so
If
desire.
they so wish.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
You're fine. Thank you.
Good.
What are your wishes, trustee Horn?
That one's already in the motion to send for review with that change made. And if everybody's okay with that, that change can be made, okay? And the last one, the naming policy. So we brought forward a suggested naming policy. You see it you see the old one at the top in red and the new one below. Quite a bit different because it's way more complex and making sure we don't make any mistakes with naming. If anybody has any questions on that one?
Not saying any.
No.
Great.
Looks okay.
Wonderful.
We'll send them all for review.
So we have a motion on the floor, to send these out for review. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved.
And then one other item.
Yes, thank you.
This last policy committee meeting was the last for me. I will be resigning from the policy committee. Thank you.
And I would like to thank you for all of your work for years and years on policies, as well as working with you for this last few years.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I would say I will send out a call out to all the trustees to put your name forward if you'd like to be on policy committee. Thank you. Thank you. District Technology Steering Committee, trustee one.
Did not sit.
Thank you. Old business, AGM, trustee one.
So the first issue is student voice. So we did lots of, at the AGM. We did lots of work on student voice at the AGM. And I wish to engage the students to, I don't remember what the other thing was. Sorry, I'm gonna stop and write down. It's on my phone, I didn't bring it. So we're gonna, I wish to contact the students and engage them in bringing ideas forward to the board. This comes from the AGM, where we had lots of information about including students in decisions that we make. And also, at the prior framework meeting, we had a group of students in here, and they had such good ideas telling us what we could be doing differently as a board. But we don't get a chance to hear them because we don't engage them. So I wish to engage with the students, and that's all I'm going to do for now, and get them going and tell them that I'm interested in them making decisions for the board. And so I wish to inform the board, if it's okay, that I do that. That's my first question.
Trustee Beal?
We have protocols for that type of thing.
Mhm.
So first and foremost, I was enamored by how much feedback that I received down at the AGM. In many districts, they have trustees who sit at the table and provide, valuable information about what's going on in their schools and how we can support them. I don't ever have an issue with that, but I'm not just jumping in and going to start talking to students. We need to have a protocol, we need to have a plan in place. So if that means a policy, or if that means that we, strike up a small committee and undertake, how that's gonna look. But we can't just start going and talking to students. There should be we have to be practical. We have to put a policy in place so that the students that want to be part and parcel of that, then we can, you've got to pick someone, right? You can't just. So that's not saying that you've got a bad idea, James, but we have to have, we have to have policies. We can't just go and start talking to our students and.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Amy, yes.
I have a half comment. I do like, the idea of getting, to hear student voice at our table. I think, the leadership, I don't know if it's called Leadership Council at Charles Hayes, or I know that they have elections on who, I can't remember what the name of is it Leadership Council? I think tapping into that would be a great idea. I think this is something that we can definitely work on in the future, probably like if we come back in September and then start talking about how to get students involved and who we're inviting, and maybe like a working session around it would be fabulous. But it is a good idea.
I love that idea.
Did you care to speak, Trustee Sanchez?
I think the idea when you go visiting things like that, and you see those students so busy at work, and I think what really for me, when I go and visit the schools, it's a different environment, and more I see more students being, instead of being quiet or something, they're there and actually participating. Leadership skills that I see developing, and I think that's a wonderful thing that's happening in the schools. It's awesome. I go to visit them, I just go in and say, hi, how you doing, that type of thing. But I've seen it, and the students are also involved in all the different, like those, like the gardens and things like that. They love it, the cooking. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Wonderful things are happening in our schools.
Thank you. Trustee Pucci?
I think there's even a more practical way to inch this in as we look towards a bigger involvement in the decision-making process. But even at a micro level, when we as an organization or a school look to do investments in books, we could, again, you survey the school and say, what themes do you like, right? And then those type of things are brought in. Again, when we look to refresh school playgrounds or sports equipment, again, you ask and again survey to what sports do you like, what pieces are important to you, and I think that just starts the whole conversation. I don't think that burdens any staff member by creating that 10-minute conversation and having them tick some boxes. But what it does is create the idea of co-ownership. And I think that's an easy way to start this and then progress to, I would say, some of those stronger conversations when we want to engage the leadership elected group and such. But I think there's smaller ways that we can even talk about paint colors. I'm just going, it's not a burden. It's just, it just becomes a quick step to just say, hey, this is what you guys wanted. Let's try and make this happen.
Thank you, trustee Pucci. If I'm hearing correctly, there's definitely appetite, and we talk about student voice a lot at this board. And also what I'm hearing is there's protocols, planning, procedures that needs to be in place as to who we're engaging now. This to me sounds like this would be great to take to a working session. We could look at what that looks like, what's happening in other districts, because we know it's happening in beautiful ways in other districts. And then we could bring that back as a decision for the board. How does that sound?
That's great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My second thing was, I was gonna advise the board, this one, that I'll be contacting the other trustees in a branch to get information for the Rural Remote Network. I just want to let you know I'll be doing that. And because now that we have more influence on the BCSDA board, I'm going to leverage that by getting more information through to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And to add on to that AGM, I think it's very exciting that of five directors, 3 of the directors are from the north. Prince George, Tumbler Ridge, and Nisga'a. So I think that is phenomenal and a wonderful time for us to move things forward, hopefully that support rural England. So thank you. Anyone else to add to AGM? Great. New business, the literacy plan meeting is May 27th, 3:30 to 5 p.m. Here at the Booth Building. Would you care to speak to that?
What time?
3:30 to 5 p.m., May 27th.
Yeah, so we got our literacy professional learning grant money, and there are some real guidelines that the ministry's given us as to how we can use that money. So we are going to have just a general meeting where people can come for information and for discussion on Tuesday. At which time we'll announce a couple of ideas that we've got around how that money will be used, and yeah. We're very, you'll have to come and see what it's all about.
This coming Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A week from today.
And we've got quite a few
Today.
people,
A week.
yeah, quite a few people have signed up. So so this is about actually our district literacy plan in general. So there's this grant that we got, but there's also work that's already happening in the district. So we want to share some of what's going on and think about how that all segues together, and how all the right sort of stakeholders will be involved in that. Yeah. Wonderful. I'm not gonna let the cat out of the bag yet.
I would love to be in attendance. I'm not attacked. Charles Hayes commencement is June 15th. For our grads of 2025, the Board of Education meeting will be June 17th. PCS, somebody's not muted, just for your heads up. PCS commencement, June 19th for our grads. National Indigenous Peoples Day is June 21st. The last day of school is June 26th. Administration Day is June 27th, and we are back for the 2025-2026 year on September 2nd.
Wow, where did the year go?
And now we have a 10-minute question and answer period. Yes.
You had extensive debate on your budget, which is never bad. But you've had extensive debate on a budget outside of your budget bylaw. You went further and made a decision about your budget. You gave marching orders to your secretary treasurer that you wanted scenario, and I don't remember which one it was. And then you gave first reading to your budget bylaw, which is not debatable. That hasn't changed. So in the interest of transparency, how is it transparent that before you even get to your second and your third reading, which is when you would have your very extensive debate, how do you explain that? Because as we all know in the room, I've done this a long time and I've never had a budget decided outside of a budget bylaw. Shame on you. You can't do that. You made an actual decision for a budget. But there's no budget, you hadn't been given first reading, which is good because it's not debatable, so that would have been bad. But you've gone further and you've made a decision about a budget. It would have been good if you'd said, oh, maybe we're all leaning towards scenario whatever. But you made a motion and you passed it for your budget. You've got some correcting to do because you can't do that. And we all should know we can't do that. If I was listening correctly, I only have page 7. We don't have scenarios. But looking at page 7, and I think Janet referred to the potential cuts to your support staff and your education assistants, but then the ST said that no, that might not happen. So I'm confused about that. But I'll wait for more, if there is more debate on the budget. Question for Andrew, just the timing of which, I'm curious about the rationale to shift from district principals to directors of instruction. Obviously, there has to be some reason for it. We talked about a little bit back in my day, but we never did anything about it. And can I assume there's a cost implication to changing the titles from district principal to directors of instruction?
So before Andrew answers your question, Enrique will answer your question.
So the first, one of the questions was, about the scenarios 1 and 2. Actually, those scenarios were included in the minutes, of the today's agenda. So those you can find it in the minutes.
Great.
And sorry, the second question was?
Second question? No, I was
About
just,
the-
Janet had made reference to the cuts about for the education assistants and support staff.
Oh, yeah,
I defaced your paper, Brittany, sorry.
That's okay.
But that at the moment is so far out of my head after this. Anyway, back to, is that a question that you can answer for me, or would you like me
Yeah, no,
to call you?
I can answer that. The movement, as we often say, it's a change in duties, comes with a different title. I'm not gonna talk about their salaries in public. That information is available publicly, but
But there would be an increase, I mean,
there may not be in some cases.
Okay.
That's why we've contacted BCPC to ask their opinion.
Okay.
And you probably remember that, Sandy and I work, we have 7 weeks vacation a year.
Yeah.
Principals get, I'll say 10. They would be giving up at least 3 weeks that they're going to be in the office in the summertime with the rest of us.
okay.
So, yeah, so there's a slight cost, but if you look at the pay scales for the, the new expectations that I have of them to take leadership roles, there is a slight increase, but again, yeah,
Would that be a trend through the province to move away from district principal?
it is. We've looked at the responsibilities for these positions and in the other districts, we're talking about, how do you have all these directors? And they say, well, if we don't, they'll leave. Because many of our staff look to opportunity. If there isn't room for advancement, they leave us. So, yeah.
And then my next question with that, do directors, have district principals always been in the category of principals and vice principals? Or are they other professionals? And then if that's
Other-
the case,
Other professions.
so they would stay in that category?
Yes.
Yeah.
You get it.
Because that is with the exception of teachers, that's the only other category that had an increase in its budget. Everything else had a decrease.
And as, I'm sure you're aware that there's been reductions in administration every year.
Yes.
And I can't release what we're doing just yet because we still have to talk to employees. We can't do it right now, but.
But there still isn't vice principals for two of the elementary schools, is that correct?
Correct.
And I would share the way that the budget was done in the past with putting positions on boards and
Oh, I know
debating.
the rationale. Yeah.
That won't be happening.
And I understand that, but we also understand that we're in a small district where if you're gonna say, if there's only one person doing that job in a district, you're gonna know who it is. I think with all due respect, the way you currently do the budget today notwithstanding, there isn't a lot of transparency to it. You may know what's going on, but the public who put you up in these seats can't tell what's going on from this particular budget. All we see is you're reducing educational assistants, support staff, you're increasing teachers, which that's good.
Yeah.
Things like that, you know, but that's all we see.
Right, so first I'll answer and then Enrique, you can correct me. What, every month, we have a wonderful, report created by Enrique showing revenue, showing how we're tracking. So this isn't that we're cutting, this is showing that we're status quo now that 2024, 2025 has happened. And we know in hindsight where our expenses were. And so this budget is stating, spending the same as we've spent this year. This is what the actual budget will look like. Is that correct?
Yes, as I stated at the very beginning of my presentation, I said that the base budget, the assumptions I'm using for this budget is the amended budget for this year. Then what I have been doing with the team is analyzing the trends that we're having in those positions that you mentioned. And what we see is the assumptions used for the amended budget were higher than the reality. So we're adjusting those for next year. I'm not saying we're going to cut positions. I'm saying we're reducing the assumptions that were used for amended budget now that we have more information for the current year. So hopefully that makes sense.
What would be even better is if you had all of those concrete figures when you're debating your budget in your third reading. That's what would have been absolutely perfect.
And we haven't gone to our third reading.
No, but you've made a decision, Kate. That's my point. You've made a decision outside of your budget.
Can I speak first and foremost? I was very confused about this budget tonight. I didn't really, and I'm not disrespecting my board, please don't get it that way. I truly didn't think we were doing a first reading tonight either. I thought we were just debating scenario 1 or 2, and then we would go into our final debates with June 30th and whatever else we have, and then go first, second, third, and final reading. And I think that's what you're saying. Is that not what you're saying? Giving us the opportunity to again revisit but like different scenarios, 1 and 2.
You can't make a decision on your budget outside of your budget today.
Why, that's what I'm just saying. So I was confused and I'm sorry, my head's not with it as much as it should be tonight. I've got
Just,
Not going on.
what I would like to clarify and for transparency purposes is since the ABC meeting, the very first one, we published and we have been discussing the calendar for the ABC meeting. So I think at that time probably would be important to highlight that to us because what actually we are following is what we stated from the beginning, from ABC meeting number 1, we show that to the public. So again, is I see it like I will reserve my comments, but the only thing I can say is from the beginning we state that. And I'm trying to follow the rules that I understand we have to follow. So apologies if you believe that there is no transparency. I can tell you, and I will say that because it's important. The number that we're providing today is not a number that just happened. It's people that is behind this budget working more than 70 hours in a week to put together these numbers, and that's the reason we are paid for, and I'm not saying, but we are not paid for overtime, it's part of the job. But, I just want to put some context there. I think it's maybe a learning, moment for me, but I just want to clarify, these numbers, the purpose of providing these numbers to the public, my first and most important goal is, as I said before, look for areas to decrease expenses in services and supplies, which I do believe that there are things I can manage and I can improve. But anyways, I will stop there. But yeah, it's again, I just want to clarify, this calendar was given since day one.
The calendar, absolutely. I have no qualms about the calendar. The debate was great. But my point is, a decision got made to adopt, to basically accept one of your recommendations, but you hadn't even had a budget bylaw read yet. So we put the cart before the horse. You've made a decision, Enrique. They said scenario, whatever. It was moved.
Yes, please,
Carry.
So I think the sentiment though is the same. So if we had done, I mean, maybe we should have read the bylaw first and then debated,
You couldn't debate it.
right?
First reading is
But-
not debatable.
Okay, but so what we heard in the past, so I've been a trustee for 6 years and it happened well before, is people complained because we did first, second and third reading
Altogether.
all together. We debated, we did it all together and we kept hearing feedback of, you can't do that because you're not giving an opportunity for feedback. You know, you can't do that because we need to sit on it for a while. You can't. So last year we did it. And it was a little quirky, if
I
you remember.
actually coming and it was all
So
over.
this was us trying to fix that quirkiness of last year where we did the final reading without
And
discussing what was going up on the board, right? So I think we came into this going, okay, look, and Enrique is right, we did it on the agenda, it said the first reading is being done today. It's been the first reading since the very beginning. We did the first reading. Now we maybe should have done the first bylaw reading first and then did it. I'm still not sure, but the
Yeah.
sentiment is still the same.
But
Right?
you
It's
couldn't
still
have-
the same. We still
procedurally,
the budget,
you
we
couldn't have
still
that.
debated budget in public. We did not have any debate in private. There are no job cuts, we're status quo, so we're not fighting over any of that. But the sentiment is still there. So, I don't know how we fix that, but I'm fine with the way that happened. Thank you.
But that's just my point, Christy, with all due respect. You just said the sentiment was there, we've done this. You shouldn't be doing a budget decision until you get to your third reading of the budget. That's where you should have had the decision made, not before you've even read your first one. Procedurally, you've done it wrong, and you just have to accept that it's been done wrong.
And that's what I'm saying.
Right.
If it's done
And-
wrong,
and-
then I accept it, but the sentiment and I don't know if sentiment is the
The-
right word that
yeah,
I'm
the
using,
intention
right?
was
The
right,
intention,
sure.
right, is
But,
that we did it
but
this
that's
way.
full comfort to your procedural bylaw, which is what you have for a reason.
Right.
That's, I'm just pointing out.
I get it. I just, thank you.
Have you further questions?
No, I have, Andrew is, and yeah, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please, Harry.
I just want to say. Every year, if there's gonna be cutbacks, library or educational assistance, it's disheartening. Our children are suffering. They are suffering. So unless you walk into the schools and see what's going on, you have no idea. But every year, we know, oh, you're gonna lose hours, you're gonna lose this, you're gonna lose that. We can't keep volunteering our time to help these little muffins. You need to come into the schools and see what is going on. I mean, it is sad.
There's no such thing as library commons anymore. That's gone by the wayside. It is, all I can say, it's disheartening. I've worked in this district 34 years and it's disheartening. Please.
I totally hear you loud and clear, and I will tell you, the experience I had 1 week after I joined the school district. I joined the BCPC meeting in November. And from the Ministry of Education, all the people that was in that meeting was told the operating grant that the school district received are not designed to cover all the expenses of the school district, period. You guys have to find a way to balance and make this work. Part of my experience working for multinational organizations is to find ways to maximize the money, minimize expenses, do more with less, period. On top of that, I have been in conversations last week actually with the Minister of Infrastructure. And I talk about the aging of our facilities and I was asking the question, hey, I do believe that the rules that you use maybe should consider the school districts in a different way. And I was told, Enrique, we hear you loud and clear. We have the BC ASBO on top of us. We have BCSTAs, we have BCPC asking for more money. And of course, the superintendents are everybody's asking for more money. It's really hard based on the current financial situation and economy to just go and give more money. So the only thing I can tell you, and Brittany is here, and other people, I have had different conversations on how can we maximize the different funds, as I said before. We have a special purpose funds, we have like 35 plus, we have a operating fund. So the only thing I can tell you is, first of all, I hear you, I acknowledge what you're saying, but the reality is reality. We cannot just go and say, hey, let's hire more, and I need accountants. Ask her, how many hours she's working on? I see the superintendent, how many works is spending in other projects besides his core activity? Same with me. We are doing our best, and I think it's important to set the tone in this table. We are doing our best to fulfill all the needs of our students. I have kids in public school system as well, so I hear you. But the only thing I can tell you is we are doing as much as possible. Personally, I'm looking for ways to maximize resources, and hopefully, I can tell you, last month, we had, and probably you know that, 2 EAs. Why? Because we found money from one of our special purpose funds to hire those 2 positions. Today, I have a call with one person in the school district. Enrique, you know what? We need to hire someone else in it. We have that fund, let's use it. So I'm just saying all this because maybe sometimes the numbers are called, doesn't give all the story, but you have people out behind the numbers together with Sandy, with Andrew, to try to again maximize those resources. My logo, my expression is do not leave money on the table, because that money that we're leaving on the table should be used for the kids. So I will stop there.
Thank you. And I do hear you, Carrie, I do. And
I don't think people do.
I would let you know I do. I have kids that have been in the system that need a lot of help. And that I think everyone here at the table is
So
here.
why are
because
our
of that.
hours cut all the time?
That's what we can bring back and we can discuss here. But also too, that I do know that people who are now in the positions that they are in are trying to maximize every dollar to get as much support for kids as possible. That's why we do what we do.
Well,
So
I
I hear
hope so,
you.
because
Yes.
our children are suffering.
I know. Thank you. And there are no reductions. There are no reductions.
But no increases either.
there is no, we need more kids. We need, you know how budget works. It's on enrollment. Money comes when we have kids. We are in declining enrollment. We only have 10 minutes for question and answer. I know we've gone over, but if anyone else had questions, please. Virtually. In person. Thank you so much. Going once. Going twice. Thank you for everyone who attended. We are adjourned, and I will remind trustees that we have to continue on with our. So thank you. See you on the other link.